Nucleus is based in Florida in the United States. It is a risk-based vulnerability management platform that is transforming vulnerability management for large-scale enterprises as well as medium and small. And so what I hope to achieve today is to give you a nice overview of the platform so that you can understand the capabilities. And then we're going to have some follow-up conversation with Guillaume and Nathan about the Managed Vulnerability Intelligence Service from INCYBER Defense that is wrapped around Nucleus. So this is the starting off point where everyone who logs into Nucleus, this is where they'll begin, on the project dashboard. And a project is simply a collection of asset and vulnerability data that's ingested from many sources, which I'll get into in a moment. So this is where you can see all the statistics for your vulnerabilities and all the different sources that they're being ingested from in the platform. You can also see your top risks and see how you're doing against your SLAs or due dates on your vulnerabilities. But to begin, we need to talk about data. So Nucleus is a unique platform in that it does not generate any data of its own. It ingests and consolidates data from all different sources of asset and vulnerability data. Scanning tools, asset inventory, CMDB. It also connects to ticketing tools and notification platforms. And so there's various ways to get data into the platform. One of the most common ways is the native integrations that we have to many of the most popular scanning and asset inventory and ticketing tools. And so if you don't see your favorite scanning or ticketing tool there, we can bring data in via other methods like an open API, as well as custom file uploads. So that's how data gets ingested into Nucleus. And so with any of these connectors, with just a few pieces of authenticating information, you can be up and running and ingesting data into Nucleus very quickly, within minutes mostly. So once you start getting your data ingested into Nucleus, then you develop two things, a list of assets and a list of vulnerabilities. Now, Nucleus takes a very asset-centric view to vulnerability management, and that asset management is a foundation of a high-functioning vulnerability management program. And so what you see here is a list of assets that have been ingested into the platform. And most importantly, you can see asset grouping on the left-hand side of the screen. And this is a very important feature because our customers have all different ways of organizing assets. Maybe they organize it by organizational chart. Very large enterprises will have multiple divisions, and that's how they like to organize their assets, so that they can just look at the assets for a particular division and how those assets are scoring with regards to risk. And then they can also create performance benchmarking. So comparing one division against another with regards to how they are doing on their risk with regards to the vulnerabilities on these assets. And so Nucleus provides very rich data on every asset in the environment. And I should mention the way the asset inventory is built is automatic. So as scan data is ingested from vulnerability scanning tools, as well as asset inventory tools, the asset inventory is built automatically, and it's also organized automatically based on the work that's already been done in the outside tools to organize the data. And so with Nucleus, you get a very rich data set on the assets. And what you see here in the additional metadata section, this is very unique to how Nucleus does integrations. You can find many vendors, vulnerability management platforms that have many different integrations with many different tools. But what's unique about Nucleus is we orient everything that we ingest, all the data, to enabling automation and making you faster and more precise in how you prioritize vulnerabilities. So you can see here on this particular asset, this is a detail view of a particular asset. Nucleus is ingesting not just the basic asset information, but also these very detailed pieces of metadata which can then be used to create detailed automations to suit really any complex environment that you could imagine. So any way you want to automate, if you care about the CrowdStrike ID on a particular asset, you can generate an automation and query and report based on that, and many other different dimensions. On this asset record, you can see all the vulnerabilities that are affecting this asset. And then you can click into any of these to get a detailed view of that vulnerability. So the data model in Nucleus is very asset-centric. So every vulnerability in Nucleus is connected to an asset. And a vulnerability can be connected to multiple assets as well. Now, for an asset, you can also adjust risk attributes at the individual asset level. So we don't dictate to the customer how they should score or define the risk attributes on their assets. We leave that up to you. So you can define risk at the individual asset level or as a whole on the project level. So the next screen we're going to take a look at is the list of vulnerabilities. And so this is where Nucleus customers spend most of their time, on the active vulnerabilities page, doing the process of vulnerability management. And so as you can see along the top here, we have what we call quick filters. The bottom row of quick filters is enabled by threat intelligence. So this is another layer of the Nucleus architecture. So it's a true risk-based vulnerability management platform. That means you have vulnerability context, asset context, and context from threat intelligence. And so it's important to mention here that with Orange Cyber Defense, we're going forward with a concept of intelligence-led vulnerability management. We think that is the future of how you will prioritize vulnerabilities, because the basic problem is that there is too much vulnerability data to deal with. And so there's too much data being generated on the organization's attack surface, and it's physically impossible to manage all of it at this point. And so by using threat intelligence correlated to the vulnerabilities in the environment, this gives you a way to go from a list of tens of thousands or millions of vulnerabilities down to a small number, usually less than 1% of the total in the environment, so that it's actually manageable and somebody can do something with it. They can actually know what to focus on and know what to fix, and then you can report real progress on reducing risk. And so Nucleus is committed from a product roadmap perspective to continuously add more high quality sources of threat intelligence to the platform. Just like with the scanning tools and the asset tools we connect with, we are agnostic when it comes to the third parties we integrate with. We just want to give our customers the integrations they want and also provide as many options as they need to do the work of vulnerability management as they choose. So for example, this second row of quick filters on the bottom, those happen to be enabled by Mandiant Threat Intelligence, which is a partner of ours in the United States. We think they have very high quality threat intelligence, just like Orange Cyber Defense does. And so we added these filters. So in this demo environment, you have over 8,000 vulnerabilities. And with these quick filters, we can see that Mandiant and all their human researchers have determined that only 8 of the vulnerabilities out of over 8,000 are actually being exploited in the wild by threat actors. And this is really the key and the modern approach to vulnerability management. Because again, we don't have the resources, we don't have the time as security teams and organizations to deal with 8,000 vulnerabilities. We just want to deal with the ones that we know are being actively exploited in the wild by threat actors specific to our industry in most cases. So with this kind of filtering capability and the embedded threat intelligence and consolidating all of your asset and vulnerability data in one place, now you have the ability to actually do something. Most of the teams we talk to, when they come to us, they're overwhelmed. They have tens of thousands. With our large enterprises, over 1 million vulnerabilities. And their first question is, where do we start? and they're overwhelmed and they don't have the resources to deal with all this. They don't have a prioritization methodology like this to make good decisions about what to focus on and what to remediate. And digging deeper into the threat intel concept, so we have our favorite Apache Log4j vulnerability here. And on this detailed view of this vulnerability, you can quickly see what assets this vulnerability is affecting. And then you can dive into the vulnerability intelligence details to get all of the rationale and justification you need as a security analyst or a manager to make high quality remediation decisions and to justify those decisions to the individuals that are or teams that are actually patching or fixing the vulnerabilities. So you can see we bring in here all of the relevant information from Mandiant and other sources of threat intelligence. And you have a wealth of information here, very rich data you can use to make high quality decisions quickly about what to remediate. And another element of being intelligence-led is that you can use all of these data points to construct very detailed automations within Nucleus. So if you care about EPSS score, if you care about CVSS, or if you care about Mandiant threat intelligence, you can build automations based on that. So for example, if a vulnerability is ingested in Nucleus, say from your Qualys scanner or your Tenable scanner, and Qualys or Tenable scores it a certain way, but you want to pay attention to CVSS, and maybe Mandiant threat intelligence, you can tell Nucleus, hey, if it's a Qualys critical, but it's a Mandiant medium and a CVSS of 7, go ahead and downgrade that criticality to whatever I choose, generate a ticket, assign it to an individual or a team, and give them a 30-day SLA or a 60-day SLA so they can work on that. And I want to create that ticket in ServiceNow or Jira. So those are the types of automations that you can create in Nucleus. And so this is the Nucleus automation engine. And it's actually part of our company's mission to help organizations prevent breaches by automating risk-based vulnerability management at scale. So that is our whole purpose as a company, because our founders came from the vulnerability management space. They were managing millions of vulnerabilities for government entities in the United States. And they had enough software engineering experience amongst them to build an early version of Nucleus to help them manage all this data. Because before a product like Nucleus, they were doing it the way that many companies do it, which is with spreadsheets, okay? So they wanted something easier, something better, something to make them faster and more efficient. And so the direction we're going is automation led by threat intelligence. So you can see here in the automation module, we have a number of different ways to automate the vulnerability management process. And when I say automate, for many years, people have been confusing or misconstruing the concept of vulnerability scanning with vulnerability management. So if you do your homework, you will see that vulnerability management consists of much more than just the scanning process. You know, vulnerability scanners are very good at generating data. They're very good at identifying vulnerabilities. But then the problem becomes, what do I do with all that data? Those scanners are generating data day in and day out, and a lot of it is just sitting there without anybody doing anything with it. And so that is the key here. So everything between discovery and a remediation, there's a lot of little processes that have to get done in between those two. I call them bookends on a bookshelf. So there's all these little processes that are very painful, they're very hard to do, and they're usually done in a very manual way. And so we're trying to automate as many of those little processes as possible to make our users more efficient. So for a great example, like what I was just talking about, I'll show you how easy it is to create an automation rule. So all you have to do is define the finding criteria and the asset criteria that you want Nucleus to trigger an automation on. So for example, like I said, if we care about exploitability, that's a very big one. And we set that to exploitable. Now Nucleus is going to know I care about exploitable vulnerabilities mainly. And then I can set asset criteria. So maybe I care about exploitable vulnerabilities that have sensitive data on them, that have critically sensitive data on them. So I just tell Nucleus that, and these rules can get a lot more complex. Some of our customers have upwards of 100 rules, depending how large they are and how sophisticated they are. And so now that you set the criteria, now you tell Nucleus what you want it to do when that criteria is met, as that data is getting ingested. So for that kind of criteria, because it's exploitable, you really want someone to take a look at it right away. So for example, you can assign the findings, you can assign them to a team or an individual. You can also do this dynamically. So for example, if you have teams set up in your ticketing tool, like say ServiceNow, which is a very common tool we deal with, everybody has ServiceNow, you can set that field dynamically. So Nucleus will map the owner or the individual in ServiceNow to Nucleus and will automatically assign that vulnerability to that individual or team within Nucleus. Or you can assign it to an individual user. And then you can also go ahead and set a due date. So maybe we want all exploitable vulnerabilities to be looked at within 3 days. And you can continue chaining these actions on one after the other until you get the recipe that you like. And so now this is working for you in the background as scan data is being ingested into Nucleus on a schedule, and you can maybe sleep a little better at night. So what we've covered is really the 3 fundamental areas of vulnerability management in Nucleus. It's a true risk-based approach. We have asset context, vulnerability context, and context from threat intelligence to ensure that you're getting all the information you need in one place to make higher quality remediation decisions faster, and then also building automation so that you can progressively remove that manual labor that is so cost intensive, both from a labor perspective and from a general cost perspective and from a risk perspective. So the Nucleus automation platform is designed to help you move faster and with more precision on those vulnerabilities that matter most. So you know where to allocate resources, and now you have more confidence about what actually matters in the moment, and you're not spending a lot of time trying to figure out of these 1,000,001 vulnerabilities, what to focus on next. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Merci. Thank you, Adam. Bonjour à tous. Guillaume Meunier, je suis responsable des activités du VOC, Vulnerability Operations Center pour Orange Cyberdéfense, au sein du CERT. Alors effectivement, je vais prendre 5 minutes pour expliquer un petit peu la genèse et pourquoi aujourd'hui on utilise Nucleus, principalement dans nos services managés. Donc à l'origine, effectivement, comme l'a rappelé Adam, on faisait du scanning management. Grosso modo, on exploitait des outils qui sont très bien, mais qui remontent beaucoup de vulnérabilités. Et au bout d'un moment, en fait, systématiquement, les RSSI nous disent « Ok, très bien, moi j'aimerais dis-moi par quoi je dois passer en premier. » D'accord ? Parce que là, j'ai 30 000 vulnérabilités critiques à traiter en urgence. J'ai pas 2 ans pour le faire. Explique-le-moi. Donc la réflexion s'est portée sur comment je fais pour passer d'un scanning management service à du vulnerability management service. Donc on s'est dit, ok, le client, il a ses sources de détection de vulnérabilité, il fait ses pentests, il fait du bug bounty, il fait plein de choses. L'objectif, c'est quand même d'agréger ces informations, dédoublonner le nombre de vulnérabilités, parce que un responsable d'application, si on lui envoie N tickets de N sources à traiter, il va dire, mais moi, vous me floudez, ça ne me sert à rien, et au pire, je vais arrêter d'utiliser votre service. Donc on s'est dit, ok, donc cette partie-là est très intéressante, on oublie le reporting sorti des scanners, on a une autre réflexion plus orientée management à ce moment-là. Et là où on était toujours un petit peu en retard, c'est qu'on produisait certes des rapports qui étaient, on va dire, standards, D'accord ? Peut-être retravailler. On avait une offre de service qui était, on retravaillait, on faisait des indicateurs très spécifiques pour nos clients. Donc en termes de suivi, c'était plutôt pas mal. Mais on restait très statique. Et l'avantage d'une plateforme comme Nucleus, c'est qu'on a déjà un feeds de threat intel de mendiant qui permet tout de suite de prioriser en fonction de l'actualité quel est le meilleur plan d'action possible en très peu de temps. Et ça a changé un petit peu la donne dans notre réflexion. Donc aujourd'hui, mes analystes et Nathan on est le team leader. Notre objectif, c'est de passer du temps sur la qualification des vulnérabilités, la contextualisation de l'environnement de nos clients au travers de Nucleus, pour que quand on commence à dire « Ok, monsieur le client, il va falloir que vous corrigiez telle ou telle vulnérabilité », ce soit vrai. Et que la charge et l'effort pour nos clients soient vraiment la plus efficiente possible. Ce qui est aussi intéressant, c'est que ce genre d'outil permet d'automatiser, comme l'a dit Adam, tout un tas de choses de manière très automatique. On dispatche les vulnes en fonction ou du moins les assets en fonction des groupes qu'on a créés. On crée aussi la prise en charge pour certains analystes en fonction de certains critères. Voilà, si tu es sur de Windows, c'est sur Critical, il y a un update qui n'est pas passé, automatiquement c'est traité par un analyste. Ça nous fait gagner énormément de temps. Et autre chose, c'est que quand le client souhaite être alerté au plus tôt, il y a un connecteur chez Nucleus qui nous permet d'interfacer avec du Slack, avec du Teams. Et ce qui, nous, au côté VOC, on peut être hyper réactif vis-à-vis de nos clients en disant, voilà, nous, on a vu qu'il y a une vulne critique notée par mendiant en super haut qui vient d'apparaître. Je vous propose qu'on fasse une revue de votre environnement pour vérifier si telle ou telle version est sur votre parc et qu'on n'en ait pas oublié. Parce qu'il faut pas... Enfin, encore une fois, aujourd'hui, les questions de nos clients, c'est comment on fait pour détecter au mieux la vulnérabilité sur nos assets. Il y a du scan authentifié, du scan non authentifié, il y a du scan par agent. Concrètement, je fais comment ? Ça répond à quel besoin ? Toutes ces questions-là, en fait, on les travaille en amont, au niveau du build, pour savoir quel est le meilleur moyen d'être le plus exhaustif possible en termes de surface d'attaque et du scope. Et typiquement, quand nous, on essaye, autant sur les agents, ça va vite, on a l'information sous 4 heures en gros, autant sur les scans authentifiés ou les scans, c'est plus long, ça dépend de la récurrence des campagnes. Donc, ce genre d'outil permet de ne pas attendre la campagne d'après pour se dire « Ok, il y a une vulne, il faut la traiter. Là, on est alerté. OK, sur votre parc, il y a telle version, on l'a vu sur 2 ou 3 assets. On prévient notre client. Je vous propose de refaire un scan complet. Donc, on est hors récurrence pour identifier si les 2 ou 3 se transforment pas en 15, 20, 30. Voilà. Et accompagner comme ça des campagnes de remédiation ou d'investigation si derrière, ça déclenche un événement. Voilà, donc je ne sais pas si vous aviez des questions liées à la plateforme Nucleus, au service d'OCD. Tout est clair ? Tout est là ?
Bonjour, ouais, j'ai une question sur la plateforme. Quand on retourne dans le vulnerabilities, there were 2 filters that have been exploited in the wild and widely exploited. What are the difference? Yeah, the fourth one is exploited in wild, and the last one?
Sorry. Exploited in wild and widely exploited.
Sure. Good question. Okay, so exploited in the wild means that they are confirmed to be exploited, but widely exploited is that they are actively being exploited right now. So exploited in the wild doesn't necessarily have a time frame around it. So it could have been exploited in the wild a year or two ago, but not necessarily today. So a good example, if you happen to be familiar, is the CISA KEV list out of the United States. It's a known exploited log out of the United States by the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Agency. When they come out with an exploitable vulnerability, that could have been exploitable 10 years ago. You don't really know, but widely exploited is being widely exploited today. Like right now, it's something to be very concerned about. I can give you a quick case study out of Australia. One of our large customers is a telecom and utilities provider in Australia for a large portion of Australia. And so when they got their data into Nucleus, they had 40 widely exploitable vulnerabilities, and they chose to focus on those first. And that was out of tens of thousands of vulnerabilities. And so they said widely exploitable is the thing that is the worst case that we need to be concerned with right now. And so they were able to, within less than 30 days, remediate the 40 widely exploitable and show very measurable progress on risk and their exposure. So, that helpful? Good.
So it means that if Mandiant have another findings, those figures will be updated, or we need to run another scans to have those new figures?
We continuously update that threat intelligence. So we have a live feed to the custom vulnerability feed we have from them. I believe it's updated every 24 hours. Yeah.
D'abord, merci pour la présentation, c'était très clair. Belle promesse. C'est une question pour Guillaume, du coup je parle en français. Je voulais savoir en fait si au-delà du critère d'exploitabilité, ce que le CVSS appelle temporal score, vous déployez la démarche de score environnemental, la criticité de l'asset qui a été mentionnée chez vos clients, et comment vous les accompagnez pour avoir une démarche intelligente de criticité des assets. Parce que je pense que le temporal score, c'est une première bonne étape, mais avec l'exposition des vulnérabilités x3 en 3 ans, de toute façon, il faudra aller encore plus loin.
Merci pour votre question. En fait, au sein du CERT, on a quelqu'un qui travaille dans le consortium CVSS. Aujourd'hui, on a un petit peu les résultats des recherches et la dernière version, la V4. Et en fait, on s'aperçoit que le temporel, il change. En fait, de mon expérience, j'ai rarement vu quelque chose d'abouti dès lors qu'on voulait travailler CVSS de base, environnemental et temporel. C'est très dur à mettre en place dès lors que vous avez une grosse organisation, parce que la plupart des gens ne jouent pas le jeu. D'accord ? Et la question était comment on fait pour un peu récupérer du temporel et de l'environnemental de manière simple, toujours en se basant sur le CVSS de base. Et c'est vrai que quand on a regardé Nucleus, alors il y a Nucleus qui utilise une approche par les risques, ce qui fait qu'en fait ils se dédouanent de la partie criticité de vuln à traiter de manière individuelle ou par groupe. Là, c'est plutôt leur philosophie, c'est je suis agnostique du système de score des éditeurs. Un Qualys va noter sur 5, un Rapid7 sur 1000, un Tenable sur 1000. Ok, mais c'est quoi leur règle de score? Est-ce qu'ils se basent sur CVSS? S'il ne sait pas contextualiser comment ça marche le temporel, ou l'environnemental, pardon. Ici, c'est un petit peu plus simple dans le sens où on contextualise. Alors, quand on fait du scoping, au début, on demande au client, est-ce que vous avez fait une analyse des risques? Est-ce que vous avez dimensionné, groupé vos assets par sensibilité? Et après, on leur pose 3 questions. Business impact de ce groupe d'assets, est-ce que c'est fort, c'est moyen, c'est en fonction de l'organisation, on peut fine-tune à peu près cette partie-là. La partie data sensitivity, en gros, c'est vous avez un environnement, un socle master standard. Néanmoins, vous traitez des données qui sont extrêmement sensibles pour l'entreprise. Est-ce que vous avez fait cette analyse de risque-là? Pareil, des critères. Ça, vous l'avez dans Nucleus. Voilà. Dans Asset Management. Voilà. On a ces critères qui nous permettent de gagner du temps. Voilà. Et ce qui fait que quand vous avez contextualisé votre environnement qui est censé être représentatif de la sensibilité de vos assets sur votre réseau, la threat intel permet d'organiser un petit peu le plan de remédiation au regard des entrées de contextualisation. Je trouve la démarche beaucoup plus simple à mettre en place, sachant que, encore une fois, on peut l'automatiser. C'est-à-dire que tout ce qui vient d'une source ou tout ce qui vient de tel range d'IP, on peut tout de suite dispatcher dans les bons groupes d'assets et donc hériter des bons critères de risque. Et ça, en termes nos phases d'onboarding sont assez courtes au regard de ce qu'on a pu faire il y a quelques années encore. Et ça donne des résultats assez intéressants à suivre surtout. Je vais revenir sur le coût du risque. Comme on est agnostique de solutions de scan, on peut se dire on va traiter uniquement les vulnérabilités qui ont, enfin, du moins les risques score supérieurs à 700, 800, qu'on doit se dire traiter en un mois. On change d'outil, 6 mois après, c'est les mêmes KPI qu'on doit traiter. Donc sur lequel on peut monitorer un effort de la part de l'IT qui a dit, ben voilà, par exemple, le monde Microsoft Windows, on a réduit les problèmes de patch missing de manière drastique. Voilà, parce qu'on a fait des quick wins, parce que votre plan de remédiation était quand même plus adapté à ce contexte-là.